I had interviewed the Alcoholics recently. And J-Ro from the Alcoholics mentioned...
You interviewed Freeway Rick.
Yeah.
And at the time, I was talking to him on the phone every day.
He was calling. Yeah, he's calling.
Oh, he was already locked up at the time.
Yeah, we were supposed to sign to him.
Oh, he had a record label. Okay.
And I never forget this because I remember the day I had to come home and tell him we were signing with Loud, and I was like nervous. Like,
man. You had to call him on the phone from in jail.
No, he would call me.
Oh,
collect from
well, what happened was he was out at first, and when we was with him a lot, and then he went back in.
He went back in.
Right.
He's in prison.
Right.
So he's calling me every day.
Yep.
And then because King T hooked it up, and so he calls me, and I'm like, "Yo, Rick, he's like, I already know. It's all good, my blessings to you, man.
Okay.
I wish I was a little more ready."
Yeah.
Come to find out years later, we were supposed to be the first death row.
But you were actually cool with it.
Yeah, well, I'm like this here. I don't really hate on nobody, and I don't feel that I should hold you down. And I felt that was an opportunity for them, even though the way it went down, Fade was even terrified too. That he did that. Let me tell you what happened. How that because had I not went to the hole, the deal never would have took place because I would have already had him signed and been able to do the deal the way it was supposed to go down the first place. But one of my friends had went to the hole, and it was a counselor and I who didn't like each other. So my partner was yelling out of the hole for me to call his girl and tell her he was in the hole so he couldn't make phone calls. Well, anyway, this counselor grabbed me and put me in the hole for 30 days. So that meant I couldn't communicate. And when I got out the hole, they were signed.
Okay.
So when they told me that they were signed, I was a little upset, but not to the point to where I'm gonna call the homies and say, "Man, go holler at them dudes." I wasn't gonna do that. I'm not that type of person. What I would make that kind of call. I wished them well. And Fade, he was a little nervous too when he talked to me again about it. And when he first told me though, he was, I could hear the excitement in his voice. He was like, "Man, I got the Alcoholic signed." And I was like, "You got the Alcoholic signed? What you mean?" So anyway, we got over it, and when I got home, Fade took me, because Fade was at Interscope then, so he took me up, introduced me to Jimmy, in between those 6 months.
Jimmy Iovine.
Jimmy Iovine, yeah. Because at that time, he was at Interscope, head promoter at Interscope. So he was doing really well. So he was trying to make up for what he had did with the Alcoholics. But yeah, that was my group. And I got the idea from Harry O and Suge, Me and Harry O's was celly. We were cellies when they started Death Row.
Aha. Okay. So were you involved in Death Row at all?
I should have been involved with Death Row. Harry O had promised me a piece of the label. But when I got out, because I got out before Harry O was still in, so he was calling me every day.
He's still in now, right?
He's still in now. I think he has about another 7 to 8 years.
Okay.
I don't know that him and Suge done fell out. So I run into Suge at Soul Train one day. Somebody called me and say Snoop and Jermaine Dupri was at Soul Train. My boy used to be the producer of Soul Train, Reggie Rutherford. So he called me and said, "Hey, Snoop is down here." So I pop up, Snoop is there, but Suge comes in later. And so, me and Suge knew each other from the visiting room downtown MDC, LA, when he used to come in and see Harry O. I used to be in the meetings with him, David Kenner, and all of them. I remember when Harry O told David Kenner that he's going to show him how to make more money than he ever made at the law business. I was right there in the attorney room with him. So Suge showed me love, like, "What's up, homie? What you want to do? Woo, woo." So the next day, when Harry O calls me, I was like, "Yeah, I ran into your boy Suge down at what's her name?" Because I've been trying to get Harry O to hook me in with Suge. Because, Suge was starting to do good. And then Harry O was like, "Oh man, stay away from that dude." And in the drug business, if it's your customer, it's disrespectful for me to go and deal with your customer behind your back.
Okay.
So I respected his wishes, and I backed up off of Suge instead of going on and working with Suge.
Okay. When you think of Suge's current situation, what's your take on it?
Oh man, it's bad. You know, Terry was a friend of mine. I've been knowing Terry since
Oh, really? Okay.
since I was about 18 years old. You know, Terry OG Lowrider.
Yeah.
And that's how my whole street life started at Church's Chicken, you know, lowriding. So I was saddened to hear that Terry had gotten killed like that. And but I know that Suge wouldn't have tried to kill, not Terry. You know, I'm sure he looked up to Terry like so many other people.
I mean, they came together to the Tam's parking lot.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, I don't really know the whole story,
Yeah.
you know, but I just know the kind of clout that Terry had in the hood, and you know, he's an OG. You know,
Yeah.
him and Big Puddin'. You know, I knew Big Puddin' too. Matter of fact, Big Puddin' testified against the sheriffs too. You know, Puddin' is the founder of Pyru.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Puddin' is the founder of Pyru. He's the guy who put all that on. You know, when we were downtown at MDCLA getting ready for trial for the sheriffs, he told me the whole story about how the Bloods got started. You know, because I do remember when the Bloods and the Crips used to play football against each other. I explained that in my book when I was a kid. But sitting down with Puddin', because I never really sit down with Puddin'. I used to serve him some cocaine. But we had never really sit down and went back over the history. And I was trying to get Puddin' to write a book too, even when he was in the convalescent home and I was still in prison, and me and him used to talk. I was like, man, you shouldn't die with that information, man. You need to put that in a book. And he was like, because I heard he was paralyzed from the waist down, and he was telling me that he just didn't want to do it. You know, he was going to take it with him.
Okay. Any other involvement in the music business at all, or no?
Right now?
No. I mean, back then.
Yeah, I paid for Anita Baker's first album.
Okay.
I played tennis, right? So for me playing tennis, my tennis coach used to take me and hit balls with a lot of little young kids. I was 16 years old, but I was little. And I didn't hit the ball really hard. So what the tennis coach used to do is he would hook me up with people who had young kids who they were trying to make be pros. So in between one of these gigs, he introduced me to this guy named Otis Smith. I didn't know what Otis Smith did. Only thing I know, Otis paid me $20 an hour at 16 years old. We're talking about 76. I was 16 years old. He's giving me $20 an hour. Plus he would buy me tennis shoes, rackets, and I would go to big, rich country clubs, you know, where they didn't even allow blacks. And he would take me home in a convertible Rolls Royce. So I would pull up in the neighborhood and I'd be in a convertible Rolls Royce. So I didn't know what he did. Well, one day I'm kicking back in Santa Monica, relaxing, you know. I didn't make my $1 million that day. And I'm going to go out and just chill by myself. I don't want to be around nobody. I just going to go chill. So they were having a Pro-Am tournament out at Lincoln Park in Santa Monica. So I'm out there and I'm sitting in the bleachers and I look up and here's one of the little kids that I used to coach. And while they're playing, he gets into an argument with another guy. He's going to UCLA and this other guy is going to Stanford. Well, the other guy is about 6'4", 260 pounds, looks like a middle linebacker. And then not only that, he had this whole rest of his teammates with him who looked like about the same size. And it's about 8 or 9 of them, and they all like banging on little Otis and his dad, who was Otis, the guy who used to buy me tennis shoes and rackets and so forth. So I'm sitting there, I'm saying, man, this finna be ugly. And I can't fight them guys with them. I can't jump in there and help Otis. So I got on my phone and I called my guys. I said, man, it's like 8 white guys out here finna jump on me. And man, it seemed like 10 minutes. Like 10 minutes, I saw my guys just coming over the fence and the whole 9 yards. And as soon as I see them, the guy who was having the match, he just hauled off and he hit Otis right in the eye. Pow! I mean, I saw the water skeet out of Otis's eye, and you know, Otis was an older guy. At that time, Otis might have been about 60 years old. So my guys looked at me, and I was just like, yeah, take care of that. So my guys jumped on. It was a brawl, and I went down and broke it up after a little bit, and run my guys off. They took off. And so we standing around, and then the tennis coach tell Otis that I'm Little Rick from back in the days, who he used to pay the $20. And then he also explains to him, no, Otis is telling Coach Smith that he should invest some money into the music business. He's holding his eye, with an ice pack on his eye, and he's like, man, I thought you wanted to get in this music business. And so I'm sitting there listening, I'm like, oh, that's what Otis was doing, music. So then Mr. Smith turned around and was like, man, that's what you need to ask to get in the music business is Rick. He got more money than sin. So then he tell him, he say, and quiet as it's kept, Rick probably the one who say your ass. So Otis turned to me and he's like, huh? He's like, man, come on, I want to take you out for dinner. So we go and eat, and he take me up to his office. At that time, the record label was Beverly Glen Music. He had Johnny Taylor, Bobby Womack. He had a song, I think, with Patti LaBelle and somebody, her comeback album. He was telling me. Well, anyway, he said he had this other girl from Detroit that could sing like a mockingbird. He needed the money to send for her. He needed a place to put her. He needed to produce the album. And da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, right?
And you put up the money.
I put up the money.
Well, you talked about in an interview, I think, with Hip Hop DX that the drug business basically funded hip hop.
I believe it did, yeah.
Yeah. And you said nobody else was going to give us a loan. Nobody was going to, give a young Eazy-E a loan to put out, do records, rent a studio, etc. So essentially, the drug business was funding.
No doubt, no question. I mean, even later on, I found out that Dr. Dre learned how to make beats off of Miss Max Spade. Yeah. King T was telling me when I was in prison. When I was in prison, my ears were more open. So I'm talking to King T on the phone, and he was like, yeah, man, Dre used to sit in the window and watch me and Master Spade make music back in the day. So Master Spade used to come to me and get his cocaine, his 8-tracks when he first started. So I absolutely believe that the hip hop industry was funded by the. I mean, that's why it's so fascinated with drugs. That's why they only talk about drugs in their music, because drugs financed it. Even Otis when I went to Otis's office, Otis had at least 3 or 4 gold records hanging on his wall. He had Chapter 8 was signed to him, but he couldn't get any money from nobody, and he turned to me. So hip hop was almost the same way. When I finally had met Dr. Dre a few years back in person, I spoke to him on the phone when I was in prison. But Dre had told me one time, DJ Pooh had came to me to do his album, and he had took me to this apartment building where all of these guys were laying all out over the floor, and Dr. Dre said he was in that house that day. So I was that close to hip hop, and really just let it slip out my fingertips.
Right, because I guess you were mentioned on the Above the Law album cover?
I was mentioned on Above the Law.
Oh, wow. Yeah, right there on the cover, it says, "Where is Freeway Rick?"
Yeah, so I'm right there. Rodney or Joe Cooley is working with my guy named Artist from Linwood, who was getting all of his stuff from me. My other man who was working with Hutch and them.
Hutch from Above the Law.
From Above the Law.
Colt 187. Yeah.
Yeah, Ralphie Petaway was working with Above the Law. So my hand is right there. Even the other guy who owned VIP Records, he was getting his drugs from me. Okay. Then I had action at the distributors, who was Otis Smith and Dick Griffey.
Solar Records.
Solar Records.
Yeah.
I was right there in their office. Dick is one of the ones who talked me out of not doing hip hop and doing Anita Baker's to give Otis the money instead of giving the money to DJ Pooh. So I look back at it and I know that I was right there and I had all the components that I needed.
You had all the money.
All the money that I needed as well. But I just didn't act on it.